What's going on, everybody? This is Echo. Welcome to the Echoisthename podcast, episode 16. Today I'm going to talk about the Ankh. You've seen people wearing the Ankh amulet for years in their jewelry, people getting tattoos of it. You ask them what it means, they'll tell you it means life, and it symbolizes Africa. A lot of that is true, but it breaks down to even further than that. Unfortunately, over the years, a lot of science and a lot of history books have said that different people have discovered different things throughout science, whether it's electromagnetism, electricity, magnetism, different energies that have been found or discovered in science to be purported to have been found or discovered by certain scientists, European scientists, white scientists. We all know that there's been a huge cover-up going on since the beginning of time as far as who's been in charge of what and who's discovered what. We can go on and on about this. We can discuss it in terms of Columbus, Shakespeare, Aristotle, Galileo, Tesla. It goes on and on. But I'm going to specifically talk about the Ankh today as it pertains to what it means to people and my belief that people should know exactly what the Ankh is so that they walk around knowing what it is that they're wearing, what they're tattooing on themselves, and what it means to have that symbol be an integral part of your life. The Ankh is, yes, a definition of life. It is life in the sense of it's a free energy generator. The actual breakdown of the Ankh itself is pretty specific as far as the way it's made and why it's made the way it's made. It's got an oscillator on the bottom of it. That's what the Ankh is. It's basically a circuit which opens up free energy or creates electricity without any wind or solar or hydropower or any sort of other energy source. It just produces electricity on its own indefinitely. And that's why it's a free energy generator. The bottom of it is an oscillator, which is a circuit. It produces a response to electromagnetic waves when you create it the way it's supposed to be created. It's a jet or a battery. A jet is a term that was used back in Egypt to basically represent a battery, which is when you put copper and zinc near each other. When you place certain metals near each other, it creates an energy between the two, just like the way you have electromagnetism all around us, even though you can't really see it with your naked eyes, but it is something that's all around us at all times. And a lot of these things can be created through using other energy sources like a capacitor or a Leyden jar, different things that create electricity by insulating materials like wood or glass between two sheets of metal, causing conduction between each other, which creates electricity basically. Yes, the Ankh is depicted in a lot of different ways, a lot of different symbols, but you all know the basic way it looks from all the different depictions online that you can look up. It's got the round top, and it's got the sort of looking cross at the bottom like a stick. And it is actually one of the early crosses used in mostly all religions, the early religions on Earth. It's called a crux ansata, which can be pretty much traced back to the early dynastic period in Egypt. Different depictions of it in different artworks and stuff like that, but it is the original cross. It had a significance to it of like male, female. If you look at the top and on the bottom, how there's a phallic symbolism to the bottom of it, and the top has a more womb-like symbolism to it. Something that can be used as an antenna or a conduit for the energy that's all around us, the ether. You're tapping into the ether when you utilize a proper Ankh, an Ankh that was made correctly. It's something that we use in a lot of different rituals and cultures throughout the planet. But when you make an Ankh, you make it out of metal, clay, and wood. And these are the kind of things that when they get next to each other, they create a certain energy or an electricity between each other. This electricity can be harnessed and can be used in different ways. Now, of course, like I said earlier, a lot of different things after the New World happened when Columbus discovered, so to speak, the New World. What a joke. And a lot of different things happened as far as who was given credit for what, as far as things that were being discovered around Earth. And of course, there were different things happening like pillaging the pyramids, stealing art, reselling it. I'm sure there's original Ankhs underneath the Vatican to this day. Tutankhamun's Ankh is probably down there. a lot of the different gods or kings, or what I like to refer to as aliens that lived at the time, kind of hybrid man-alien kings at the time, possessed different ankhs. They each had different, powers or different energies that they emitted. The Ankh of Anubis was more related to like protecting the dead. The Hapi Ankh was related more to like living waters and controlling the Nile and the Amun River, kind of like a faucet, as you would. You control the underground flow of the Nile when it was used by the king or the god Hapi. They said that when you created an Ankh with the proper materials, they would place it underneath kings' noses. So they would frighten off maggots so that the body wouldn't rot and it would remain in its own kind of original form when it was buried. It also frightened off things like hyenas and jackals, because the Ankh produces this high-pitched ultrasound that's inaudible to human ears, but it's effective in frightening wild animals and shit like that. So people back then in Egypt knew about that, and they would bury their kings with the Ankh that the king had while they were alive, just to protect them in the afterlife. And there were a lot of kings and graves that were found with kings in them would always have these Ankhs inside of them. The same way the wire Ankh, if it's built properly, can be used in dowsing, which is the pseudoscience of detecting water underground. And you've seen people detecting water with the dowsing, with different devices that use dowsing in detecting water underground, the same way they detect metals underground with metal detectors. The Ankh had a lot of different services it provided, but more so than not, it definitely resembled a key, because it was a key to life. It allowed you to have eternal life after death, in the sense of protecting your body after death when you were put in a grave, but also it controlled electricity. It produced electricity by using the materials in the Jed portion of it, the oscillator bottom part of it, and the top is where it was harnessed and would be emitted. That's why they have the Ark of the Covenant, which was also in and of itself an Ankh. It was something that produced electricity once a body was put inside of it, to protect it from grave robbers and things like that, because it had electricity around it. You would use a rod that had a certain material on it too, to kind of turn off the electricity that it possessed. Again, this was all known back then in the early times of Africa, when Kemet was around, and it was using Hittite technology back then too. I tried this experiment a long time ago, and I did it once, and it's not something that's easy to do because of the materials that you need to be able to pull it off. But basically a Jed, or a simple battery, is created by placing two dissimilar metals on either side of a piece of papyrus or parchment paper that's soaked in salt water or an acid of some sort. You can kind of position it in a way, and this is where Pythagorean and Euclidean mathematics comes into play, because there has to be a certain distance between the two different metals for any sort of voltage to be produced. Like a single unit of zinc and copper can produce about 0.759 volts. And that current has a greater magnitude than what you normally produce from like an electrostatic machine. And again, if you can replicate this through a larger force, through a larger means rather, like an Ankh or something even bigger, you can produce this kind of voltage or electricity from using no other source of energy at all. And this is why the Ankh is used as a free energy generator. And if this kind of knowledge was out there more and more people were following into it and buying it and trying it on their own with the kind of technology we have today, I'm sure it'd be something that the government would hate for people to know about. That's why patent laws and different laws that would be able to control and manipulate the history behind the Ankh and what it was used for. But as long as people like me are out here doing the kind of things we're doing and putting the information out for people to learn about, I think it'll be very soon that we'll see how we can liberate ourselves from everything out here that's got us enslaved as far as energy is concerned. But I thought it was important that people understood exactly what the Ankh was. If you rock with the podcast and you want to hear more, feel free to let me know suggestions and hit me on my Instagram, my Twitter. Everything is Echoisthename. Go to my website, leave me a comment there or a message there, or join my email list, echoisthename.com. Holla at your boy.